Obrigado, thank you. Shall I say good morning still? Bom dia. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here. Senor Enrique, we acknowledge the support, the sponsorship that CAF has brought to this, and we're very pleased to be here and to give you a small snapshot of how the Jeff investments in Latin America have laid the foundation for numerous opportunities going forward. I have prepared a long presentation, but I will ask the hosts to share that with you electronically, but I just give you a few highlights of what the Jeff has done. If I could just summarize, we have been very fortunate to be able to mobilize more than $10 billion US in Latin America with a Jeff investment of just about $2.5 billion. Our donors asked the Jeff to find private sector partners from the multilateral development banks, and this has been very successful in Latin America, where we've been able to combine the public funding with other development bank funding and private funding to create a huge variety of opportunities for projects. We've also been very fortunate to focus on projects in several very important areas. Biodiversity has attracted more than 1/3 of all the funding in Latin America, but climate change, both mitigation and adaptation, has also attracted more than 1/3. We've also been fortunate to fund projects in the areas of protection of international waters, chemicals, and in what we call multifocal areas. So overall, I think you can see that one of the success stories of the Jeff is finding partners who care about investing in the planet and making these sound investments in environmentally sound technologies. So let me summarize some of the lessons that we've learned from this sets of projects with the focus on how we can do a better job of working with the private sector partners. So many of the Jeff funding, and most of the funding that has come to Latin America has come in the form of grants. And that's good. We find that grants can be very effective to help our government recipient parties move forward. But it's also very important to engage the private sector to experiment and innovate on business models that can lead to sustainable protection of the environment. And I think, as has been presented by our award winner and by several other speakers, the business models for sustainable development and protection of the environment are becoming more and more available. And we want to encourage that at the Jeff. We want to showcase the success of those business models because, in our view, grants alone are insufficient to create this structural change in the economy spoken of by our morning speakers. So we need business models that can be sustainable and scalable. The second thing we've learned is that when we seek public partnerships with private sector and we ask them to take risks and be innovative and promote products that are not commonplace in the marketplace, it's logical and reasonable that we share those risks with our private sector partners. And this is, we find, one of the most useful uses for donor funds from agencies like the Jeff. The next point I think we've learned is that the Jeff offices are in Washington. So I can't come down to Latin America and visit the coffee fields. I need agents in the field who can do that for us. CAF serves as one of those agencies, the Inter-American Development Bank, the other agencies. But even still, those agencies are not project developers. They're not on the ground, turning the screws, digging the dirt. So we always need these intermediaries. And what we've found at the Jeff is that in the financial sector, fund managers who are able to aggregate good projects with good technical expertise have become very important for us to distribute our money and have that invested wisely. So we are very encouraged by the type of work that CAF has moved forward in creating the ecosystem for these intermediaries. And we look forward to expanding that. And I think finally, we've learned that our private sector partners want policy predictability, durability, and certainty so that they can make investments knowing that the environment will stay stable so that they can get a return on those investments. So our government partners, we're working with the GEF to establish those policy tools, be it a feed-in tariff for renewable energy, or be it a system for conservation agreements, for preservation of land. These are very important for our private sector partners. And I think we have two different experiences so far. In the clean energy space, we have tremendous success. The policy tools are very strong. Yes, they could be better, but in many countries in Latin America, the policy tools for promoting clean energy are well established, and the markets are working. Capital is flowing. We still have risk, and we still seek additional intermediaries and partners to help share that risk and move forward. In the area of biodiversity and protection of natural resources, things are moving well, but not as fast as in clean energy. Policy successes are there, but the markets have not fully developed yet. So the GEF is seeking investments to foster the development of those markets for the protection of environmental resources, the payment of environmental services, etc. Again, business models that seek to work in that area will have risk, and we want to share that risk. So let me show you just a foretaste of what you will be able to see in my presentation offline, which I hope that you can study. In the area of biodiversity, we've had several tremendous success stories, including the first phase of the Eco Enterprises Fund, where the GEF actually took an equity investment through our partner, the World Bank, to invest in sustainable business models in the area of forest protection and ecotourism. We've provided technical assistance in Central America for the Cambio project to mainstream biodiversity conservation. And we've been very fortunate to work with several leading NGOs, such as the Greening the Cocoa industry in partnership with UNEP and the Rainforest Alliance, and in the Inter-American Development Bank, where we've partnered with the Nature Conservancy on protection of watersheds. In the area of climate change, you'll soon hear from one of our successful project sponsors, Senor Mascarella, on the Clean Tech Fund, which was an equity investment. We've also participated in several risk reduction programs in Chile, for example, in helping reduce the risk of investment in energy efficiency. A very large project with the World Bank in Mexico to provide loans for investment in energy efficient appliances. In the area of adaptation, again, we are not as far along as in clean energy, but we've been able to invest in several projects in Central America and Colombia to try to help create the policies that will establish markets for adaptation going forward. And let me feature one project in particular, a brand new project that we have just announced with the Inter-American Development Bank. You can see I have information on each of these projects for your homework, if you're interested. But let me just talk briefly about this brand new project. So the GEF donors have been very satisfied with the 20 years of GEF experience. Again, the bulk of the money we've invested has been through grants. But they have noticed a concern that our private sector partnerships are not as strong as they could be. So they asked us to create a new mechanism to engage with the private sector. This mechanism was approved by our GEF Council in November of last year, And we have just announced 2 new public-private partnerships, one in Latin America, one in Africa. The one in Latin America is with our good partners at the Inter-American Development Bank and the Multilateral Investment Fund there. What this new tool allows the GEF to do is through one of our banks, we can make loans or equity investments directly to private sector partners. So in this program, the IDB has identified 3 funds: the Eco Enterprises Phase 2, the Microcarbon Development Fund, and a new fund called the Indy Fund. We, again, not making grants, we're not providing technical assistance, we're not reforming policy, but the GEF is providing resources, $15 million, which will be directly invested in these equity funds. And we're very much looking forward to the success of those funds going forward. The Indy Fund, let me just mention that in particular, a brand new fund. It's called Indy because it focuses on communities with indigenous peoples and promoting clean energy development for those communities, with the specific focus that the communities will be shareholders in the project and earn a return along with the other investors. So this is something that we think is maybe not a brand new idea, but an idea worthy of investment and testing here in Latin America. And the good news is that we still have some resources left in our public-private partnership fund, and I'm inviting other organizations through the multilateral development banks to submit additional proposals for the next 2 years, where we have approximately $40 million to allocate for additional public-private partnerships. So let me wrap up. And again, I invite you to contact me with any questions or comments about the GEF. And if I could just say, the very good news that I'd like to share is, as you know, the GEF, we've been around for 20 years. And during those 20 years, we've been limited to working with the UN agencies and the multilateral development banks. But under the leadership of Madame Monique Barbu, we have launched a process to now partner directly with national agencies. And we have an accreditation process. We have an accreditation process that's very strenuous, but we have 2 members right here today in our audience who have begun that accreditation process and have been approved by the GEF Council to continue to stage 2. And that is the Development Bank of South Africa and CAF. So we welcome the participation of these 2 organizations to now be more directly GEF partners. Again, we make no advance commitment because the accreditation process is very sophisticated and complex, but to ensure environmental and financial safeguards. But we are optimistic that these 2 agencies will soon be part of the GEF family, and we look forward to continuing partnerships with them. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to responding to your questions.